And so when I say Chinese, I want you to scream out the nation that's associated with this. For example, if I say Chinese, you're going to say what?
China!
All right, let's say it with authority. When I say Chinese, you say what? China! All right, that's just a test right there. So here we go. Chinese. China. Russian. Russia. Italian. Italy. German. Germany. Swedish. Sweden. Korean. Korea. Egyptian. Egypt. Nigerian. Nigeria. Black.
Exactly. Tell him, Pastor. Tell him, Pastor. Black, nothing.
I hope you were able to successfully identify the issue.
The lion won't sleep tonight, 'cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said the lion won't sleep tonight, 'cause we woke now, and we woke now. They want us to sell our souls to barter profit like God's property. It's hard to market, so we steady to aim. Keep your eyes on target, 'cause when you got to drive, yeah, they'd rather you park it. But I don't valet, you ain't getting these keys. I'm keeping closed hands, I'm on bended knee. I'm just a reflection, dealing with 8 sections. Art mixed with life, you can feel the convection. Your lion won't sleep tonight, 'cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said the lion won't sleep tonight, 'cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said
the same people that have stripped us of our identity and labeled us as a color have told us what it means to be black.
The white man is enacting a story all over the world. We left our homes and flooded the world. We smothered culture. We smothered knowledge. We erased history and rewrote it our way. Myself, my grandfather is 100% Ashkenazi Jewish. Claiming to be Jewish, Ashkenazi Jewish is just a conspiracy. White men claiming to be of tribes of Israel when I'm Germanic. You know, I have no ties to Israel, no ties to Judaism. You know, except loosely written history that's been whitewashed over for centuries. And, you know,
from the Renaissance.
Oh yeah, right. You wipe everything clean. It's funny how exactly the Renaissance. It's this rebirth, but it's white rebirth. I think at the same exact time the Renaissance is happening, Columbus is sailing to America and committing genocide.
There's only one true ethnic Jew, the Mizrahi Jew, because they are Africans, and if you read the original Bible written in Phoenician Hebrew, they're not. Jewish people are not Europeans. The modern Jews in Israel are Russians or Khazars to be precise, from Russia. I learned it from my grandfather that because he was an Ashkenazi Jew.
The same people that have stripped us of our identity and labeled us as a color have told us what it means to be black.
You know what you are? You're an ancient Israelite.
Ancient Israelite, that's who we are. That's who we are. So if you give me time, if you give me time, how that he said?
No, we don't have.
So many years.
I know. Look at this. This is pages and pages of notes. And I promise we'll give more teaching. But here is my challenge to you.
All right.
I'm hearing some of your traditions. It's like the days of the Bible.
Yes.
Do you want to remain ancient Israelites, or you want to be Jews? Do you want to
The same people that have stripped us of our identity and labeled us as a color have told us what it means to be black.
So, a little over 1,000 years ago, as Jewish people scattered around the world had now emigrated in Europe and now were living in the Rhineland in Germany, they looked at the name Gomer in Genesis 10, and they connected Gomer with Germany. So they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz. It has nothing to do with Ashkenaz in the Bible, which is a descendant of Japhet. It's just a name that was taken. Okay, it's that simple. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin or anything else. It was shortened from a Russian name when my grandfather came over at Ellis Island. The name got shortened to Brown. It's just a name. That's all it is. So the idea that Ashkenazi Jews are descended from Japhet is a myth, 100% false.
Stranger danger! Stranger danger! Stranger danger!
Does having Jewish DNA determine your Jewish status? Great question. The answer is your Judaism is determined by your mother. If your mom's Jewish, you're Jewish according to traditional Judaism. Now, you could have a very high count of Jewish DNA, and that's awesome. That means you're connected to the Jewish people, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're Jewish. Don't forget, there are people that convert to Judaism and they have zero DNA and they're 100% Jewish.
Stranger danger! Stranger danger! Stranger danger!
And you know what else, Jim? I just want to say this to our Christian friends, you know, just to call it as it is and say it straight out, you know, you guys are worshiping one Jew. That's a mistake. You should be worshiping every single one of us, because we all die for your sins every single day. And that's exactly what's going on here. Yeah. We're all God's firstborn, and we're dying for your sins right now because the Jewish people in the land of Israel are the bulwark against the orcs. Okay? The orcs are coming not to a theater near you, but to your home.
Stranger danger! Stranger danger! Stranger danger!
The entire Bible is about black people. Not only was Jesus black, but every character in the Bible seems to be black too. Yeah, Zephaniah and Jeremiah and Jebediah, those all aren't white people names, okay? And Jesus wasn't some tan, partially melanated Middle Eastern person either. I'm talking straight up black dude, okay? Even in the book of Revelation, when you get the vision of Daniel, he's describing someone with feet like burnt brass and white woolly hair, and we've got the deep running water voice with the red eyes, and you guys, he's black. The Jewish people are black people, like Kanye was right.
Why do you think that the U.S. is so quick to go help Israel fight against the Palestinians? Why? They know that the Jewish people in Israel are not the original people. Oh, no, no, no. They are definitely not. The original people are black people and people of color. So why did one lady, Judith Shore, she was an Israeli consul, say that the biggest threat in Israel is the younger black community? Why do they feel so threatened? Why? Because you know why? They know that the black people were the original chosen ones, the original ones that were there. The people over there now, they took over all that land, just like they're trying to take over all of Palestine. They have taken so much land from Palestine also, but watch what this lady says about the black community being Israel's.
The major problem of Israel is with the young generation of the black community. Black Lives Matter starts there. I had last week sit-down dinner in my house with 70 people, which are considered the leadership of the black community.
I have said to people when they ask me if this capital crumbled to the ground, the one thing that would remain is our commitment to our aid. And I don't even call it aid, our cooperation with Israel. That's fundamental, our cooperation with Israel. That's fundamental.
For the righteous, they exist in the world to come and they're rewarded. And for those whose major complexion is black, are excluded from the world to come. Major complexion is black, are excluded from the world to come. Major complexion is black, are excluded from the world to come. For the righteous, they exist in the world to come and they're rewarded. And for those whose major complexion is black are excluded from the world to come.
Like, what? Did you just tell on yourselves that, how y'all took slaves out of there back in the day and brought them, and made them make America and all this because you took them from their original spot. And now they are trying to sit there and continue to take all the little bit of land that Palestine has. The U.S. is evil. The U.S. is evil, not the people in it, because I am from the U.S. But what I'm saying, all the ish is crazy. We have U.S. soldiers over there going to sit there and kill innocent kids, women, children, elderly men, everything in Palestine. But how did black people, all of a sudden, young black people, and the community of black people, all of a sudden become the problem to Israel? Please explain this to me. Is it because
today it is prohibited, and you can Google this, to do a DNA test in Israel? Totally forbidden. Wrong. It's illegal. It's a crime. You'll be jailed if you do a DNA test in Israel. Why? Because they know the truth will come out. You come from Poland, you come from Ukraine, you came from Europe, you came from everywhere else. And they were the original Middle Eastern Jews who lived together with the Muslims and the Christians for centuries. For centuries. So what happened to a lot of the Jews?
It just doesn't matter. 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 It just doesn't matter.
So, family, let's go ahead and give you clarity on the movie. I know I went a different route, as far as in terms of allowed some comments being made about the movie. But let me just address a few things. And that's why I laid out this presentation the way that I laid it out. Let's start with the storyline. What is the storyline? Right? A down on his luck man struggles to find a better life for his family while fighting to free himself of debt, right? Captivated by the power and glory of the rising Messiah, he risked everything to carve its own path to a divine life, ultimately discovering that the redemptive power of belief may be his only way out. Clarence met with the Dukables, hoping he can gain power. No, actually not Dukables. I'm saying Dukables. I misspelled them. Pronouncing a misspelled word, right? That's where you're so focused. Disciples. It's supposed to be disciples. I said Dukables. Blame you, Sister Carol. So Clarence met with the disciples, hoping he could gain power and influence of becoming the 13th disciple. Right. So he wanted to be, he was a gambler, and I'll get to that in a second. When he failed, he decided that he wanted to become the Messiah. All right. So that's the storyline. So here it is. He was a gambler. He owed a debt. He lost everything. Right. And he had to pay up. And he was fearful of his life by not paying his debt. So what did he do? He said he wanted to be a disciple because he saw the influence, right? He saw the influence of the disciples, the authority and the power. He saw this and he wanted that to get out of debt. He wanted that influence so that way the people can give, so that way he can make money and get out of debt. Doesn't that sound like the televangelist? Performing fake miracles and all those different things. To hustle the people. That's Clarence's approach. His brother Thomas, right? That's why I laugh when you see they're twins. Clarence is one and Thomas is the other. So That's the overall storyline. He wanted to use the authority, the power of the Messiah for a hustle. And come on, we got to be real about it. So many people look at Christ, look at the Most High. Let's start with the Most High, relationship with the Most High, like it's a hustle. Actually, many people don't even talk about Christ, right? I mean, talk about the Most High. They talk about strictly Christ. But anyway, they, whenever something go wrong, they show up at church. Y'all seen people like that. Then once things look like it's on the uptick, they disappear. Come on, family. We got to be real about it. Let's call it what it is. I remember in the military, it was certain people that I work with. There were certain women I work with. You knew when they was in a relationship and when they were out of a relationship. When they were out of a relationship, they in church. Right? When a relationship was sour, they in church. Once they get a boyfriend or whatever, they out of the church. We have so many people that take that same approach, like Clarence, that they're so wishy-washy, like Clarence. Clarence was wishy-washy. There's nothing that says differently. That's why I say, is this really a blasphemy against Christ? Because he was not the Messiah. He started out wanting to be a disciple. That didn't work, as we saw in the the overview of the movie, the storyline. That didn't work. So he said, hey, you know what? The disciples rejected me. Well, you know what? I'm going to become my own Messiah. Instead of becoming the 13th disciple, I'm going to become my own Messiah, and get my own disciples. And that's what he did. He decided to carve his own path to what? Becoming his own, a type of Messiah, or a Messiah, a self-appointed Messiah, which I'm going to show you some scriptures on this and what happened. And we'll go from there. So I want to make sure you understand. This is why I say that you can use this movie as a form of discussion. And that's why I say I disagree with the sister when she said that, if somebody don't know, if a babe saw this, they'll be deterred. That's absolutely incorrect if you saw the movie. If anything, it's going to spark questions like me when the type of person that I was when I was younger, very inquisitive, right? I would literally, all right, I'm watching the movie. Now let me see the validity of this. Where did they get all this stuff from? I want to understand. I even look up to see if Clarence was real. So we can take that approach and say anything can cause somebody not to want to. If anything, we don't even have to say a movie. What about these crooked preachers? We see people right now saying that I don't want to go to church because I see crooked preachers. We see people in this awakening or walked away from this awakening because of some of the things that they saw within this awakening. So you could say that about anything. But again, Clarence, right? Thomas. That's why I laughed at this, the play on words, Clarence Thomas, twins. All right. So what was the overall message? All right. What was the overall message? As the sister pointed out, knowledge without belief is dangerous, because Clarence was kind of like the conscious community. I look at him like the conscious community. I look at him like those that have all this knowledge, but they don't have no relationship with the Most High. It reminds me of what Paul said in Romans chapter 1. Gained all this knowledge, you know what I mean? Became wise. They got all this knowledge and they became fools. That's what Clarence remind me of. Apostle Paul. I didn't get a chance to put the passages inside this text. Inside this presentation, but I'll just like I pointed out with Simon the sorcerer. You could see that inside the scriptures. So Thomas was someone that was driven by knowledge, but he didn't believe. but he wanted to have access and get the benefits of being a believer without having to make the sacrifices. Let me say that again. Doesn't that sound familiar? He wanted the results as if he believed, right? But he didn't want to go through the sacrifices. He had all of this knowledge, but he had no belief. He didn't believe in the Most High. He didn't believe in Christ, but he was drawn to Christ because of the influence. He was drawn to the disciples because of their influence on the people around them. So he decided to come up with his own hustle to try to become, since he couldn't become the 13th disciple, he said he'll become a Messiah. So the overall thought here, just like what we see today, right? Knowledge without belief is dangerous. It's very dangerous. That's why I don't spend a lot of time. I'll give you a lot of sources, but I got to bring it back to the scriptures. I'll talk about certain things even here. I want to bring it back to Christ. I don't want to get way out into left field and get into all this Jay-Z discussions. And I don't want to get into all that. Let's talk about Christ. Let's talk about how we can use the movies like this as a teachable moment. The movie, they put a lot of money into it. It was very artistic. It was a high quality movie, right? Guess what? It was a couple of things in there that, I was like, okay. But overall, it didn't take away from the movie. All right. So let me say that again, right? Knowledge without belief. And, when you understand belief, the word faith, when you understand trust, all of those come from the word aman. When you see that word aman, you guys grew up in church, say amen. That's the transliteration. But aman means faith, trust, belief, permanent, and going to the right hand. Thomas did not want to go to the right hand, which is Christ. He wanted to hustle his way. So instead of going to Christ, he decided to try to carve his own way and said, instead of going to Christ and humbling himself, he wanted to become the Messiah. He said he's going to become a Messiah. He's going to mimic. We see mimicry all through the scriptures when we deal with the Egyptians, for example. They tried to mimic the miracle that Moses did. Moses threw down the staff, the sign that the Most High gave him, and what did the magicians do? They decided to do the same thing. They threw down the staff and they was operating in magic. See, that's what we have to understand. That was the overall theme of Clarence. He had knowledge, but he had no belief. Just like it made me think about that father. I believe, but help my unbelief. In Matthew chapter 17, he believed enough that the Most High can heal his son, but he didn't believe enough to keep his son from having a relapse. But when we look at Clarence, he had no belief. No belief. He had all the knowledge in the world, and we're living in an information age that's making it challenging. That's what's making it more challenging of what in believing, because we have so much information, and many don't have the discernment to spool through that information. All right. So I want you guys to remember, this is a comedy-filled movie with satire in it, so of course, this whole movie is from an angle of Clarence the Hustler. And I'm going to show you a few additional things here. So this movie focuses on, excuse the typo here, on a man who is in debt. I put depth. Why the man? I need to update this slide. I put depth, but debt, right? Man. See, when you typing this stuff up, proofreading is everything, right? Let me go ahead and correct this real quick. I don't like to see my typos. All right, and then we'll deal with belief real quick. Let me. What slide is that? Oh, here it is. I haven't said made up a word, right? And didn't even catch it until after I thought about. Wait a minute. Oops. All right, family. So let me correct one more thing. All right, there we go. That's better. So it was Clarence was in debt and decided to become a Messiah. Initially, it was to become a 13th disciple, but become a Messiah with the goal to paying off his debt. He didn't care about the people. He didn't care about the responsibilities. He just wanted to pay off his debt. So the prophecy of of increase of knowledge without belief, guess what? It's in the scriptures, right? That's why I talked about Paul when he dealt with Rome in Romans chapter 1. I'm not going to get into that here. I didn't put it here, but I meant to put that here, but I just didn't for the sake of time. So, but let's see what knowledge mean in Hebrew, right? It says here, right? It says, and we see a da'ath here, but it says cunning, right? Ignorantly, awares, perception, discernment, right? So knowledge is going to increase, but guess what? Where's the belief? But let's see what belief means, because he had knowledge, but he didn't have the right discernment. His discernment had him going against the Father, not trusting the Father, going against the Messiah, not having a relationship with the Messiah. He wanted with the Messiah, he wanted the power, the authority, but he didn't want the commitment. He didn't want that. He didn't believe. So Aman, as I pointed out, it says here, it means to build up. It means firm, right? Or be firm, faithful, trustful, belief, to be permanent, quiet, to go to the right hand. So all of these qualities under this Hebrew word Aman, this is what Clarence lacked. This is what Clarence did not want. He made it clear. And he laughed at his brother, said, hey, in a nutshell, he's telling his brother they believe but have no knowledge. But Clarence had knowledge but didn't believe. All right. And I hope this is helping you guys out to get a proper clarity without a spoiler alert. So Clarence, right? He was not firm. He was not faithful. He did not trust. He did not believe. He did not want to be consistent. He did not want to be permanent. He did not know how to be quiet. And he did not respect the right hand of the Father, which is the Messiah. So the question too is, how should you approach the movie? I stated it, right? As a teachable moment. But here's the kicker. By understanding key words such as Messiah and prophecy. Because when the sister came on, she stated that the movie is blasphemy. It blasphemy. It blasphemy Christ. And when I asked the question, well, how did they show Christ? How did they depict Christ? She said they barely showed him. No, but they did. When they showed him, they did not minimize him. They did not belittle him. They did not take away from who he is. He was still the Messiah. Right? They had a few things that was, for example, in the scriptures. I'm not going to let it away. I'll let the cat out of the bag on certain things. You'll see. I'll just leave it at that. Now, I was kind of apprehensive because in the trailer, they didn't show Christ. They just didn't show who was playing Christ, rather. And so I was like, okay, all right, are they going to pull a fast one on me? And guess what? They didn't. But they did give me a curve, which I'm not going to release tonight. I'm not going to spoil it for you guys. So by understanding these keywords such as Messiah and prophecies is important. So is the book of Clarence blasphemy? From my perspective, I don't see it as blasphemy. Why? Because I understand the angle. See, number one, I understand what Messiah means. And most people don't understand what Messiah means, even in this awakening. I'm gonna knock down some poor theologies that we all were subjected to, even going to a learning environment on an academic level. These are some of the things that you did not learn in school. Even doing classes like New Testament survey, Old Testament survey, you didn't learn when I'm getting certain things that I'm going to bring to your attention here. You didn't learn this. All right. And I'm going to explain why. Now let's go to blasphemy. It says to scorn, abhor, blasphemy, despise, provoke. Right. So let's see here. Is it blasphemy for a movie showing a hustler wanting to become a messiah for financial gains? Now, I'm going to ask that question to you, family. Is that blasphemy that a movie is depicting someone trying to hustle? He tried to become a disciple, didn't work. So he said, okay, if I can't be a disciple, then I'll become my own messiah. Is that blasphemy? I'm going to ask you guys that question. Is it blasphemy for a movie showing a hustler wanting to become or decided to become a self-appointed messiah for financial gains? I ask you guys that question, and feel free to post in the comment section your thoughts on it. And as we progress, I'll review some of the comments. And I'm going to let you form your thoughts here. How many messiahs lived? How many messiahs lived? And there's a scene, that's why I don't want to give it away, but there's a scene at the end. And there's another scene, an instrumental scene, that I can prove to you that the movie doesn't blaspheme. Actually, it's accurate especially when we understand this word Messiah and we understand the words of our Messiah, the Messiah. Notice what I said, the Messiah. But we have to understand how many messiahs lived. Let's see here. Let's continue here. I'm going to give you scriptures, right? We're going to give scriptures. What is a messiah? Most people can't answer this question. If you ask the Christian, what is a messiah? They're going to automatically go to they're going to say the Son of God. They are going to say the Messiah is the Son of God. Right? They're going to say the Son of God. Because most Christians don't even open up the Hebrew definition of words. They're not going to open up even the Greek definitions of words. But they're going to automatically say the Messiah, far as Christ, Jesus Christ. That's the Messiah. Well, tell me what is, explain. They'll say my Lord and Savior. They would repeat or regurgitate certain things that they hear. Right? So what is a Messiah? So let's give you the proper definition, right? Let's start with the Greek, right? Let's see what the Greek word says here. We see Christos, right? It says anointed, an example, the Messiah, epithet of Jesus Christ. But then it says here, anointed. Christ means anointed. So family, if this word simply means anointed, then that means, right? Whenever someone says that they are anointed, they're using this word. This is why you have to be careful of what words you use. You have to be careful of what words you choose. And today's time, that's the buzzword in the church. Such and such sang that song has such an anointing. That's why I don't throw these words out like anointed anymore. Actually, I really didn't throw it around even when I was in the church. I wasn't one of those that was caught up in those things. Oh, TD Jakes, he's such an anointed. Oh, such and such an anointed. Oh, that pastor is such an anointed. Oh, that singer is such an anointed. Oh, that minister is such an anointed. Oh, that 6-year-old man, the way that 6-year-old man opened up the Bible, was able to go into the Bible. Oh, that 6-year-old got anointed. The way that 6-year-old can mimic all the preachers. Oh, anointed. We throw that word anointing out so much. But do you know that word anointed is synonymous to Christ, synonymous to the word Messiah, synonymous to the word Mashiach, because I'm going to prove it here, right? Let's go to the Hebrew definition of the word anointed. Notice what you see here. In the Israeli, Mashiach. In the ancient Hebrew, it'll be Mashiach. Mashiach. That's why you may hear me say Mashiach, not Mashiach, because there was no E sounds in ancient Hebrew. We're not getting into all that, family, right? Right, but nevertheless, not getting into all that. Mashiach, as you see on the screen, that's the Israeli, Mashiach. But notice what it says: anointed, usually a consecrated person. I say concentrated, but a consecrated person. So Mashiach or Mashiach, right? That word, it says here, a consecrated person, such as a king, priest, right? The high priest, and even what? Holy people of the Most High. So the Messiah, anointed Messiah. And you see here in the sub-entry, entry number 1, rather, anointed one. So family, what I'm getting ready to share with you, this is going to really knock down the poor teachings and why so many people are being deceived. Coming up in Christianity is so easy to deceive because most don't really understand what I'm presenting to you right now. That's why when I see the movie, I understand what the word Messiah is. So I didn't go to the blasphemous route, because I'm going to show you here. I'm going to show you why. So for starters, we see here Mashiach. It means a consecrated person, such as a king, priest, or a holy people. Holy people of the Most High, like the Israelites. It can be used in different ways. So Messiah, according to the Hebrews, Mashiach, some of you guys will say Mashiach, means anointed and consecrated person, such as a king, priest, or a holy person of Israel. So is it blasphemous to refer to the Levitical priests as anointed or messiahs? I asked that question, right? Is it blasphemous to refer to the Levitical priests as anointed or use the word Messiah? Is it blasphemous? Come on, family. Now you have Mashach, right? That also means anointed wash, right? And you can say that that's the primitive root, because even when you look at Moses' name, Masha, it means what? To take out of the water. Which is interesting. We still see what? Those 2 consonants at the beginning of Mashayak or Mashak, right? Which is anoint, far as to rub with oil, to rub, right? So is it blasphemous to refer to the Levitical priests as anointed or messiahs? Let me show you here, right? I'm going to give you scripture. Leviticus chapter 4, verse 3. And see, when we understand translations, the translations is whatever word choice is of that person who's the scribes, who's doing the translating of the text, right? It's at their discretion on what words that they choose to use. So here it is. If the priest that is anointed to do sin according to sin, to the sin of the people, then let him bring for his sin, which he had sinned, a young bullock without blemish. Right. So if the priest, now we can talk about the high priest, because the high priest, Mashiach, right? So the high priest that is anointed, and notice what you see here in Hebrew, Mashiach, Mashayak, right? Mashayak, do sin. So we see priests, we see this word Mashayak being used, right? You know, so think about this, right? So let me say this, let me give clarity. G's, yadi. Like, this is where we get into loan words. Like Moses, right? Masha, we know that was used in the Egypt, in Egypt, right? Kamat, right? We know that Moses' name is a loan word, right? So Masha, or right, uh, his mother, when giving him this name, she couldn't give him the name of the Pharaoh. So he just had Masha, right? And she gave the definition of anointed, or passed through the water, taken out of the water. So I want to give clarity to that. So Moses was anointed by the Most High, but he came up in the Egyptian courts. So yeah, we see loaned words. We see Pharaoh's name, Moses, Moses, Tutmoses. But Moses could not be named by any of the pharaohs because he was not of their house. So that's why you didn't see any of the prefixes of whatever dynasty that was there. Let's just say if it was Moses, you would not see Masha, right? Because he was not of that household. That first portion means the house of, basically saying the bloodline of this particular pharaoh. So appreciate you pointing that out, but I just wanted to give clarity because I saw it in the chat. So Moses' name, and this is where we get into loaned words, right? There were loaned words going across the board, right? But anyway, if the priest was anointed, priest that is anointed, Mashayak. So we see that the priest, was David in sin for referring to King Saul as Messiah? Because guess what? You can say Messiah. You can say, because Messiah simply means what? Anointed. Look it up. Do the etymological dictionary definition of the word. Messiah means anointed. So was David in sin for referring to King Saul as Messiah? Because all the kings, guess what? You'll see in a nutshell, a king is Mashayak. And this is part of the reason why you see a lot of brothers having issues with the prophecies, because they'll look at King David as being the Messiah, the redeem, the ransom, the one that is spoken of in Isaiah 53, from 51 to 53. They tend to default to saying that, hey, King David is the Messiah. Come on, family. We gotta let that stuff go. That's absolutely incorrect, right? So David was not anointed to carry out the task that the Messiah, Hamashiach, was instructed to carry out. Right? He was not called to have the how can I put it? He was not called to be or carry the sins of Israel on his shoulders. Right? In Isaiah 51, it makes it clear that the Messiah, right, was the one that was going to what? Die for the sins of Israel. Right? I'm not going to go into all the teachings on that, but I encourage you guys to go look it up. You'll see it. Because you have brothers that will teach that, hey, you know what? Christ, the reason why he can't be the Messiah, because can't no man die for another man's sins. When you go and read Isaiah, you see it's totally different. Let me see something here. Let me just go to the scriptures real quick. Since I mentioned it, I'm not going to put it in the chat, but since we're getting proper clarity on what a Messiah is, let me just pull it out real quick. Let's see. Let me pull it up here. Let me go here. I'm looking for the verse here. All right, let's see, Isaiah, because I said, let's go here, 53. Let's pull it up real quick. All right. Isaiah chapter 53, verse 10. Yet it pleased Yahweh to bruise him. He hath put him to grief when thou shalt make his soul an offering for what? Sin. So we see here that he was made an offering for sin. And that's in verse 10. But you'll hear these non-messianic brews trying to deceive people by saying, can't no man die for another man's sins? But we see that Isaiah 53 prophesies saying that this was going to happen. You know, there's other passages within here, I'm not going to get into it, that literally says that this is what was going to happen. Like verse 5, he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. What is iniquities? Bending and twisting, going against and breaking the laws. All right. So we have scriptures. So those are some of the scriptures. Isaiah 53 is the passage. I mean, it's the chapter that you can use to knock this stuff down. All right. When those, I call them messy antics. You have these messy antics by these non-messianic brews trying to pull people away from Christ with a bunch of bullet points that we could just go right into the scriptures and pull out. All right. That's right. The barber's view. If you're in the scriptures, right, the spirit, you will be able to pick out gems, right, in this movie. Guess what? That's exactly what we're doing. That's exactly what we're doing. We're picking out the gems of this movie. That's why I said the movie is not a bad movie. It really is not. All right. But look at what David said about King Saul. And when the men of David said unto him, behold, the day of which Yahweh said unto thee, behold, I will deliver thine enemies into thy hand, that thou mayest do to him as it shall seem good unto thee. Then David arose and cut off the skirt of Saul's robe privately. But here's the kicker, right? Verse 6 is what we're going to get to. And it came to pass afterward that David's heart smote him, because he had cut off Saul's skirt. Verse 6, and he said unto his men, Yahweh forbid that I should do this thing unto my Adonijah. So he referred to King Saul as Adonijah. In other words, superintendent of the house, the person that he answered to, right? Yahweh anointed. So we see that David is acknowledging that King Saul was anointed by the Most High. And we see the word in the Hebrew, we see Mashayak, to stretch forth mine hand against him, saying he is the anointed Mashayak of Yahweh. So we see that King Saul, you see that word Mashayak is being used in this passage. And remember, Messiah simply means anointed. But anointed to do what? He was anointed to be king, just like David was, right? So here's another example. Is it blasphemous to refer to King David as anointed or a Messiah, which still means anointed? 2 Samuel chapter 23, verse 1. Now these be the last words of David. David, the son of Jesse, said, and the man who was raised up on high, the anointed Mashayak of the Alahaya or Alahai of Jacob, Ya'aquab, and the sweet psalmist of Israel said. But we see that David, what, is being referred to as the anointed. You see that word Mashiach, which is also, you can see Messiah. But again, because of how we were taught about that word Messiah, you only see it applied to the Son of the Father. All right. So we'll get this, we'll get clarity as we progress here. All right. So let's continue here. All right. Just peeping out, saying, making sure there's no one's trolling. So what is the Hebrew word of, well, I don't need to get into that. Right. Oh, yeah. Actually, yeah. What is the Hebrew word that is used in this prophecy about the coming son of the Redeemer? Right. Let me read this here. Daniel chapter 9, verse 24 through 27. And I'm not going to break this down like I intended to do, because of it's not getting kind of late. It is late. Verse 24 of Daniel chapter 9. Excuse this right here. This is typo. It should be verse 9. All right. Because I customized. I put everything that you see here, I put together graphics. So I have to correct this. This is supposed to be chapter 9, verse 24. So excuse the typo, family. So 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon the holy city to finish the transgressions and to make an end of sins and to make reconciliation for iniquity, right? Iniquity, bending, twisting, law, statutes, commandments, and to bring in everlasting righteousness and to seal up the vision of prophecy and to anoint. Now we see the word anoint, mashak, right? Oil, pour that oil on, anoint, to anoint the most holy, right? But notice here when we get to verse 25, know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah. Wait a minute. See, when we see that word Messiah, with the choice of word versus anointed is at the discretion of who? The one that is the translators describes. Now, the reason why they put Messiah here to make it easier for you to connect this to the Son of the Most High, Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ. That's why you see Messiah here. Know therefore to understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore, to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the Prince, shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublous times. Right, verse 26. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah. We see that word again, Mashiach. Again, remember Mashiach. The Hebrew word it simply means anointed, and it can be applied to kings. It can be applied to priests. It can be applied to holy people that are designated to carry out certain functions, that are tasked to do certain things. Only one person was tasked to take on all the sins of Israel, and that is the Messiah. That's why we put the article ha, which transliterates to thee, which is a definite article. When you really start learning the language, right, you will see that's why you see ha Mashiach. That's why many of you guys say ha Mashiach or Jesus the Christ. Why? Because you understand that word Christ is used not just to the Messiah, the Son of the Most High, Yahweh's Son. All right, so I want to make that clear. But we see here a prophecy here, and the people of the Prince shall come, destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood. And it goes on to say, and unto the end of the war, desolations are determined. Right? Verse 27, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate. So we see a great prophecy here. And we see Messiah being used several times here. And we can go to Matthew chapter 24 and see that the Messiah made reference to this prophecy when dealing with the falling of Rome, or not Rome, but Jerusalem, the falling of Israel, the invasion of the Romans. And we see Christ use this prophecy to give to his disciples, saying, hey, this is what's going to happen. But we see the word Messiah here. That's my point. That word Messiah can transliterate to the word Christ, or Mashiach can transliterate to the word Christ, transliterate to the word anointed, transliterate to the word Messiah. It's all at the discretion of the translator. So I'm not going to explain all of this here. You know, this is for the non-Messianics who don't believe in Christ and think that, hey, this prophecy is not teaching what it says. But I'm not going to get into it for the sake of time. All right. So this is actually breaking down this prophecy. I'm not going to do that tonight. All right. So what did the Messiah say about other Messiahs? Now, this is where we have to understand. What did the Messiah say about other Messiahs? What did the Messiah say about other Messiahs? Let's go to this key prophecy. Matthew chapter 24, verse 4 and 5. See, this is why I say, and I make it clear, by Clarence declaring to be a Messiah, this is not blaspheming the scriptures. Because we see that even Christ talked about there were going to be self-appointed people that are going to say that they are messiahs. That's why the movie is basically teaching this right here. And Yahushua, Jesus, the Christ, answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, reputation, saying, I am Mashiach. See, Clarence, when you understand name, it means reputation. So just like I just explained to you about this, the overview of the movie, Clarence wanted to operate in the reputation of the Messiah so he could fool people. He wanted to be anti. He had his own selfish motives that he was pushing for his own personal gains, a hireling. See, this is why, man, when you really unpack this, you can have these discussions that I'm having right now. You can give the truth about what it means to be a Messiah, or the Messiah, or what the word Messiah means. But it says here, and shall deceive many, because Clarence deceived so many people. He deceived so many people. Lying, gaining money. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So this prophecy is the prediction of the destruction of Jerusalem, 70 AD, by the Romans, as I pointed out. But this prophecy is also referred to, as I call, well, of course, the scriptures, the translation said times of sorrow, but I like to use the word Odin, because that's the Greek word Odin that's in the text, right? So let's continue here. All right, man, I should have deleted this. This is just an extra slide. So why do I call this the time of Odin? Because again, the Greek word for sorrows is Odin, right? Transliterated Odin, pronounced Odin. Intolerable anguish in reference to the dire calamities precede the advent of the Messiah. So we know that this is going to be a time of sorrows. I just like to say the time of Odin, if you understand the story of Odin. So the Israelite historian Josephus gave an account to the destruction of Jerusalem and the rise of deceptive, self-appointed messiahs and false prophets. Look at what he says here, and I'm going to show you here. So Jerusalem, facing the crisis of its last days, experienced a great number of false messiahs and prophets arising, and each had his own message about how the people could be saved. Right? So let's go to Josephus real quick. Look at what this says here. Now there was then a great number of false prophets suborned by the tyrants to impose on the people who denounce this to them, that they should wait for deliverance from God. And this was in order to keep them from deserting, and that they might be buoyed up above fear and care by such hopes. Now, a man that is in adversary does easily comply with such compromise. For when such a seducer makes him believe that he shall be delivered from those miseries which oppress him, then it shall, then it is that the patient is full of hopes of such deliverance. So Josephus is making acknowledgement how these messiahs that rose up, these false prophets that rose up, is telling the people to stay in captivity, tell the people stay in debt, tell the people stay in harm's way, tell the people to be subjected to the Roman government. Why? For their own personal gain. Let's go back here. It says, who denounced this to the people. It's telling them that, hey, you know what? They are appointed by the Most High. But it says that they should wait for the deliverance of God. And this was in order to keep them from deserting, from following them. Not fleeing for safety, but stay following them. Using fear to keep them in a place, to keep them in position. Family, how many times you guys been in church and you see the spirit in church? You decide that you want to go and, and I'm glad the Barber's View, man, this is a great thing. And I'm gonna talk about this real quick. Thank you for posting that. Right. But anyway, we see this in the church. How many times have you guys been demonized by a church when you decide to leave that ministry? Have you guys ever been demonized when you were faithful to that ministry, but then when you decide to transition, the pastor used fear tactics to keep the rest of the people in check, or they try to discourage you by this fear? Hey, if you go out there, this is going to happen to you. If you go out there, that is going to happen to you. They act like when you're leaving their church, you're leaving Christ. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. This is what was happening during this time. For when such a seducer makes him believe. See, that's what Clarence was doing. He was a seducer. He was a hustler. Makes him believe that he shall be delivered from those miseries which oppress him. So that's what you see. Many of these televangelists, they would hustle people by having them follow them, embrace these miseries, seduce them by saying, hey, if you contribute this, the Most High got a blessing for you. And they exhausting all their resources to get into next, they're in a worse situation, a much dire place. I see this happening a lot. Many have come to us for help through our ministry that have been hustled. And you see this part of the character of who? Clarence, who had no belief. He had all the knowledge, but no belief. All right. So that's what Josephus stating here. It says, but like infatuated men without either eyes to see or minds to consider. Right. Matter of fact, let me read the top of this. Let me start at the top of the paragraph. Thus were the miserable people persuaded by these deceivers and such as belied God himself, while they did not attend nor give credit to the signs that were so evident and did so plainly foretell their future destruction. So they were so busy deceiving the people. Even the signs were all around them about what was happening. Like when Christ gave the prophecy, he said, hey, when this happened, hey, if you are in the city, flee to the mountains. He's telling the people, secure where they are. But these deceivers were so caught up into themselves. Like the TD Jakes got driving around $1 million cars, the Creflo Dollars $1 million cars, with some of the other guys, the guy, I can't think of the Caucasian guy down in Texas, got a stadium for ministry, driving around $1 million cars, while you have people within their ministry taking a bus, don't even own a car, had to depend on the public transportation, living in 30-40 $1 million homes, while you have people living in an apartment, can't even make rent. You got these Jesse Duplantis and all these other people hustling to be. That's what we see here. Keeping people in misery, but hustling them. All the signs around them for the people, letting them know they need to secure their homes. Why? Because the lights getting turned off, getting all the signs that this is a hustle, but instead they continue to send their hard-earned money to these people. Joel Osteen, appreciate it, Sister Carol and others. Come on, family. This is what the book of Clarence. This is Clarence's whole hustle here. The denunciation that God made to them. Thus, there was a star resembling a sword, which stood over the city, and a comet that continued the whole year. So Josephus is saying there was a star hanging over the territory in a form that looked like a sword for the whole year. And guess what? It says, thus also before the Jews' rebellion and before the commotions which preceded the war, when the people were come in great crowds unto the feast of unleavened bread. So they come in there for the Passover, to honor the feast and all of that. But guess what? They have a sign that destruction is coming. Josephus said here, a comet. It says a comet. It says thus there was a star resembling a sword, which stood over the city, and a comet that continued the whole year. So they had two signs here. A star looking like a sword that stood over the city for a year. Can you imagine that? A star that you could see clearly that looks like a sword, and you see a comet that continued in the same place for a whole year, and they ignored it. They ignored it. See, Christ also spoke spoke of another period where self-appointed messiahs will rise. And that's what Clarence was, a self-appointed messiah. So how is this movie blasphemy when we see the actual examples that Christ is talking about? It's right there in the movie. You get a visual of a self-appointed messiah wanting to hustle the people. So that's why I wanted to, I probably should have did this first before I had the discussion. So that way we could have used that at the end, but that came first. So it kind of delayed what I was going to get into. So I may have to clip this video up so that way you guys can at least see this here, because this is more important than the opinions, the views, right, of others. You seeing how to approach this movie. So Christ prophesied another troublesome time for Israel, which is referred to as the Great Tribulation. Matthew 24, verse 21 through 24. It says here, for then shall be what? Great tribulation, such as were not since the beginning of the world, to this time, no, nor ever shall be. Verse 21, except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. In other words, the hours and everything shrinking down. Time is flying. Then if any man shall say unto you, lo, here is Christ. In other words, here's the Messiah. Here's the anointed. In other words, in this troublesome time, in the height of the things that we see, you're going to have people jump up and say, they're not going to say they're Christ. They're going to say they're anointed. That's the buzzword. Remember, anointed, Messiah is interchangeable. Christ is interchangeable. So they're going to say, hey, you know what? We got the anointed over here. We got the anointed over here. Christ is saying, believe them not. Twice Natural, watch the presentation, because we already talked about this, and I'm giving you a spoiler on this. So watch, I'm going over the movie right now. And I'm making it clear, it's not what you don't pay attention to the trailer. Go see the movie and then form an opinion. As the scripture tells us, make sure we take in and understand the fullness of the matter before we form an opinion. And many have formed opinions just off of what they heard others spew out there before the movie was even released. So then if any man shall say unto you, lo, here is Christ, lo, here's the Messiah, lo, here's the anointed, yo, here's in another nutshell, the Hebrew word Mashiach, it says, there, believe it not. Right? Verse 24, for there shall arise false Christs, false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, and so much that if it was possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. So Christ is saying that there were going to be false messiahs rise up. So the movie is clear that Clarence is a false prophet. Clarence is a false messiah because he started out what? Hustling the people. He didn't care about Christ. He cared about the influence that Christ had. He cared about the power. He didn't care about the disciples. He cared about the power, the authority, the recognition. He just wanted to use them or to get out of debt. Doesn't that sound like a lot of stuff we see today? That's why I have a thing about selling all kinds of stuff. Come on, family. I'll say this again. Privacy. I encourage you guys to watch the beginning of the movie, because if we focus on who made movies, then you might as well just put down your Bible, because who are behind many of these translations and transliterations? My concern is not about who made the movie, right? Even some of those movies that many of us watched, many of those slave movies that we watched, it was the very people who enslaved us that helped produce those movies. So I'm not caught up into who made the movie. That's not my concern. Why? Because the Most High used Nebuchadnezzar. The Most High used a Persian king that Xerxes, that Esther was married to. I'm not caught up into, and this is where we miss it, because if we're not careful, but my point is, we all watch stuff. And we're still watching stuff. We still have stuff that's in front of us right now. Do you know that many of these videos that you're watching from people within this awakening, do you know that many of them are not even living what they say? So this is why I say, don't get caught up in, the movie itself, or who made the movie, rather. Watch the movie. Think about it. Right? Think about it. Jay-Z also said that the reason why they made the movie, because they said that our people need to see themselves in the New Testament. That's why I want to make sure we understand. This is where we mess up. We hold ourselves at much of a higher standard, and we let everyone else off the hook. We read commentaries that we know is from the church, and guess what? We know that they don't follow the law, statutes, and commandments. So, but we still will pick up that commentary. We'll still pick up. But my point is, don't let that be a stumbling block. Go watch the movie. Use it as a teachable moment. And I'm going to say this again. Use it as a teachable moment. So again, I say this again. Just because we talk about certain subjects doesn't mean that we embrace. Does that make sense? So all I'm saying to you, sis, use your own discernment. I can't tell you yay or nay, but for me, this is a teachable moment. This is a teachable moment. This is what you can use to sit down and say, let's talk about this movie. See, what I do on this platform, I talk about stuff people say to me, hey, why are you talking about it? This is not thing that everybody want to talk about. That's why you don't see the views like it has been for like the past month. Normally we have at least double what we see here. But I know how we've been suppressed. Stay away from that. But here's a movie that has nothing but melanated people in it. We always talk about and complain about these Jesus movies, regardless of how warped many of them are. Where are we in it? But this is a movie that depicts the disciples looking like you and I. That depicts, let me show you some of this. And I know I'm getting sidetracked here. Right? And I'm not actually, I just wrapped that up anyway. So I'll highlight one last point. Right? Let's go to the cover here. When have you seen a movie made about Christ with a cover like this? Outside of Blair Underwood, and he didn't get much push back in the 90s. When have you seen a movie about the times of Christ that you saw this here? The saddest thing is going to that movie theater, and here it is, a movie theater that sits about 150 people, and I was the only one there. You would never see this. So the movie is about a hustler trying to hustle, become a disciple, to pay off debt. To become, since that didn't work, he said, I'll be the Messiah. Since I can't follow the Messiah by becoming the 13th disciple, I'll become a Messiah myself. I'll become self-appointed. And the movie shows him hustling the people because and getting the people to believe that he's a Messiah. I don't want to give the movie away. That's why I thought the movie was going to be released on Netflix initially. If it was, man, we'll be going in even harder to give you proper clarity, because I know for a fact you guys would have saw it because it would have been on Netflix. Family, come on, family. When I saw the movie, I was apprehensive. I was hesitant, but I said, I'm going to go see it so I could form an honest opinion about the movie. Man, like the brother that came on earlier, he said it brought tears to his eyes. Family, if you saw the movie, free from what the approach that the sister came on here, or she didn't want to go. She said she told someone it's blasphemy. So she automatically approached that as blasphemy. Oh, they tearing down Christ. They're not teaching Christ. Yes, they did teach Christ. They did nothing in the movie to belittle who Christ is. But Clarence, it was showing a hustler, and we see this around us. It was showing us the life of a false prophet, how they got in place. And guess what, privacy? Guess what? I used to be in the industry too. That's why I can understand this movie. So when you watch this movie, I mean, everywhere, and anytime you saw Christ, guess what? It did not take away from his divinity. It did not take away from his divinity. When you watch it, contrary to what that sister said, it did not. When I asked the question, did it take away from Christ? Did it depict Christ in a negative light? She couldn't answer the question. She could not answer you guys heard it yourself. She could not answer the question. I said when it showed Christ, and I gave a little bit of it, because in the end, and I know I spoiled it for some of you guys, but it's not really spoiling the movie. But in the end, Clarence, the hustler, followed the Messiah in the end. He believed in the Most High in the end. Towards the end of the movie, something shifted. And I'm not going to go into all of that. But this is the Book of Clarence. And remember, it's a comedy, right? But again, we done put up with more stuff in church. We done put up with so much stuff, and many are still putting up with stuff. Many people would tolerate what's happening over there. I mean, with that other community, stealing our identity. Come on, family. But I asked the sister, I said, did the movie, and I even asked her in the end, what happened to Clarence at the end? And she tap danced around the answer. I said, what happened to Clarence at the end? Did he not? And that's why I didn't want to go there, but I spoiled that portion of it. So privacy, you're good. You know, I appreciate the question. So that's why I want to make sure that I'm giving you an honest assessment. I'm not telling you that you shouldn't go, but I believe you should go and form your opinion from there. But I'm giving you an understanding of how to approach the movie. You know, so like I said, I know the past month, at least a month, we've been having over at least 1,000+ views. People in the chat, but the last two lives, last night and tonight, just let me know that I know YouTube is going through that process again of suppressing the channel. Let me see here. For me, I'm not American, but the first thing that came to my mind with Black Hollywood is comedy mockery of themselves. That's why I'm looking at it with that's the key. Look at it with caution. I'm not telling you not to use discernment. I had caution. When I went there, I was like, okay. And I was like, okay, I bet this is going to happen. Man, I'm telling you, when they pulled the okie doke on me. They were setting you up. I'm telling you, watch the movie. And I guarantee if you watch the movie from the angle that I mentioned, understanding this word Messiah, understanding what Christ said, right? Let me wrap up with this last point here, because I want to give you one final point, right? Let's go here. Because we explained Messiah was not just used. That word Messiah, Mashiach, wasn't used just for the Son of the Most High, right? It was used for the kings. It was used for the priests. It was used for those that were anointed, the holy people of Yah. So let me give you one more thing. All right, I covered that. Let's go to this portion here. All right. All right, let me go to this here. Is the movie worth watching? I'm going to say absolutely. Man, you guys, if you guys saw some of the old movies that we grew up with back in the 80s and 90s, man, like that Who's the Man by Dr. Dre and Ed Lover, that was one of the worst movies I ever seen. If you could watch that, guess what? You could watch this. We done seen some bad movies. Come on, family. This is worth watching. The production is A1. It's better than any production that I've seen, even dealing with the situation, even dealing with the story of the back at that time. And the other thing that I want to point out, without giving letting the cat out the bag, the social portion of it. Because for me, I've always said I'm tired of them depicting Christ as a wimpy guy. Every time you see Christ, he's always a wimp. And we know that Christ was not a wimp. Anytime Christ tell his disciples to arm themselves, anytime Christ tell his disciples that, hey, don't no man take my life, I lay it down freely. Anytime that the Hamashiach walks inside the temple, turn over those tables of the money changers with the Romans looking and the Romans back down. Come on, that's not a wimp. That is someone operating in authority. And unfortunately, many of us don't understand that Christ was not this wimp. Christ was not a pushover. Christ operated with authority. If you want to be real about it, Christ was that he was that that voice. He was that power. He was that. Come on, family. Christ was not this wimpy, well, love everybody. I died for everyone. That's not the Christ of the scriptures. That's the Christ that we were given. That's the Messiah that we were given. We were not taught correctly about the word Messiah. It simply means anointed. So anytime you use the word anointed, hey, that person is anointed, guess what? Think about the word Messiah. And I guarantee you, the more you say, take those two words, whenever you want to use the word anointed, use the word Messiah, and I guarantee you, you'll stop using that word so loosely like how we use it today. Come on, family. So is the movie worth watching? Absolutely. But let me give you one last observation, right? Clarence, come on. Christ warned about false messiahs, anti who? Messiahs, anti prophets. And he was that guy. He was that guy. In this movie, Clarence freed Barabbas from slavery. That's right. He had a Barabbas. He freed Barabbas from slavery, and he became John. What's that? Yeah, and he became his John the Baptizer, so to speak. Actually, I like to say Peter, not John. I meant to say Peter. Let me correct that, because Peter was that fight among the disciples, right? Barabbas in the movie became his John. I mean, not John, Peter, because Peter. Let me change that. I don't even want to say John the Baptist. I'm gonna say Peter, because he wasn't the forerunner for this character. He was more so like a Peter. I'll say Peter. Let me change this around. All right, that's a better depiction. He became his Peter, right? Because Peter was feisty, right? And I know some of you guys like, wait a minute, Barabbas? You mean to tell me Barabbas was this false prophet's Messiah? I mean, right-hand man, or his Peter? Guess what? Yeah. Remember, Barabbas is a false prophet in this movie, wanting to hustle the people, wanting to become a Messiah for his own hustle. And guess what? In the movie, he had someone that was named Barabbas that followed him. That was his Peter. This is complete contrary to the scriptures, but should we be offended? That's up to you. I wasn't offended, because one way or the other, Barabbas was an evil person. But in this movie, Barabbas followed a hustler, right? Barabbas followed a hustler, right? They made Barabbas, pumped him up a little bit, but again, he's a hustler. You know what I mean? I'm not going to give the movie away. But who is Barabbas, and what's the meaning of the name of Barabbas? Because remember, Israel accepted Barabbas. Israel accepted Barabbas over the Messiah. But Thomas was, a hustler, a false prophet, a false Messiah, and he had Barabbas as his right-hand man. So that's the point I want to make. But let's just give proper clarity and understand what Barabbas' name is, because Barabbas is really not his true name. Barabbas, as you see, is two words: Bar Abba, right? Bar Abba, son, father, son of the father. So Barabbas means son of the father. Come on, family. For some of you guys that don't understand Hebrew, Bar is son, as well as Ban is son, but Bar is son, Abba is father. So Barabbas' name means son of the father. Barabbas actually had the same name as the Messiah. Let me give you clarity here. So that's why I said it starts with understanding. Man, I misspelled it. It starts with understanding the meaning of the transliterated name Jesus. Let's see what Barabbas' name means. Let's start with Jesus. Notice what it says here. Joshua had the same name. So Joshua is not he had the same ancient name as the Messiah, right? It's just in our translations, you see Jesus, right? And you see Joshua making a distinction between the two. But they both had the same name. Yahweh is his name. Ancient name. Some of you guys would say, excuse me, Yahusha. Some of you would say Yeshua. Whatever names that you say, no matter what way that you pronounce it, Joshua had the same name as the Messiah. The Messiah name was popular at that time because all during that time, were anticipating the Messiah. So they were naming their sons that name, many of them. Right? So again, Barabbas is not his true name. His name is the same name as Christ. His name would be, properly transliterating it should be Jesus, just like they use Jesus in church. If it's going to be Joshua, then Christ's name should be transliterated as Joshua. Barabbas' name should be transliterated as Joshua. Why? Because it was a common name. But these are the hands of the translators. It's subjected to the translators on what they use. All right. All right. So we see here Joshua, son of Nun. This is giving us some additional information. And this is what we see in the background here. Right? It's giving us some additional information. But I'm not going to stop there. Right? When we go to the Chaldean, Hebrew and Chaldean lexicon of the Old Testament, it gives us the information on here. Right? We see Yeshu or Yeshua or Yahshua, right? A contracted form of Yahweh Shai, used in the later Hebrew, right? Now we get into Aramaic. But anyway, so notice what it says. This is the point that I want to make. Of Joshua, the leader of the Israelites, right? Joshua wasn't the short name, wasn't the short form. It was this long form, just like Christ's name was the long form. And when you read Acts chapter 7, you'll see when now I can't think of his name. I can't think of his name. I can't think of his name. In Acts chapter 7, matter of fact, let me pull it up here real quick. It's getting late, family. This is later than what I normally go in terms of time. All right. Stephen, that's who I was thinking of. Stephen. When Stephen in chapter 7 of Acts was giving, really before the council, the Sanhedrin, right? He was given an account of a historical account of Israel, what the Most High had done, right? So when you go down to verse, let me see here, because you'll see it in Acts. Let me see here. All right, I can't see the verse. Everything is looking like X's and O's, like I'm on a matrix, right? Because I've been in front of the screen. But you will see Jesus there, right? And we know that it's not referring to Yahweh Shai. Let me see here. I was trying to scan down. When you're trying to scan through text, you tend to miss stuff quick. Let me see it. Let me just do one more thing. I want to tell you guys the exact verse. All right. Let's see. Bear with me 1 second. I want to take you to the exact verse so you guys know where I'm going at, to prove that Christ had the same name. It wasn't a short form, Yeshua, right? Yeshua, that's a short form of his name. Now, I used to say Yahashua, right? But now I say Yahweh Shai, right? Let me do it here. All right. All right. Yeah. This is in verse 45, right? Where it says, which also our fathers came after, brought in with Jesus into possession of the Gentiles. And guess what? This is dealing with Joshua here, right? Because this is dealing with the promised land. This is not dealing with Christ. This is dealing with the Messiah. This is dealing with Joshua. But you see Jesus there, and you'll see the exact same Greek word there as well. So his name was not a short form, it was the full name. And as you see here, even in the name of a high priest, right? And so you see that this name was popular. It was a full name, but it tells us to see the full name, Yahweh Shai, right? Let's go here. Let's go to the full name. Did I put the full name here? Yep. So you see here it says salvation, right? But the key is, as we see here, that this name, as you see here, the same name as you see Joshua, right? Son of Nun, right? Leader of the Israelites after Moses. We see a high priest with the same name, right? But I don't want to stop there. I don't want to stop there. So again, Barabbas also had the same name as the Messiah, Hamashiach. Let's go to Barabbas. Notice what we see here. Son of Abba, or of a father, a notorious robber from, it says, whom Pilate proposed to condemn to death instead of Jesus, whom he wished to release in accordance with the Roman custom. But the Jews were so bent on the death of Jesus that they demanded Barabbas, right, to be released, to be pardoned, right? And that's what this says here, to be pardoned, okay? And Pilate did. So Barabbas represented a whole different Yahweh Shai, right? Barabbas represented a whole nother Messiah, right? And the Corinthians talk about another Messiah, but I'm not going to go through here, right? Preaching another Messiah. But what is the reputation of Barabbas? We know that he murdered people, right? We know that he was the taker of life. But I was trying to get to one key portion here. All right. Because actually, let me go here. Let me put another definition here of Barabbas so that way you guys understand they had the same name. So let me go to the Strong's Concordance and put that in here because I thought I had it in here, but I didn't put it in here. Let me do it real quick, and then we'll call it a wrap. All right, let's see here. Let me change this picture. Let me see here. Jesus. Because I want to see. Here we go. Yeah, this is what I wanted here. Bear with me 1 second. That's not what I want. Let me do it again, family. My apologies. Let me try this again. All right. And let's see here. Almost done here, family. All right. Bear with me 1 second. Almost done. Just putting the full definition here. All right. That's what I want to put here. All right. Let me put one more here. All right. And let me change this background. right, now let me bring it up here. Let me show you another dictionary. Let's go to the Strongs. Here it is. Right. Even though it says here, right, it says, as we see, this is Jesus. This is the Greek transliteration of the name of Christ, right? Yahweh Shai. As you see here, Yehashua, right? Yehashua, right? That's how they have it here. An example, Joshua. So we see Jesus, right? Jesus, Joshua, the name of the Lord, and two other Israelites, as it says here, right? But let's go into the in-depth definition. Entry number 2, Jesus Barabbas was the captive robber whom the Jews begged Pilate to release instead of Christ. Right? So Barabbas' actual name is actually, again, it's actually the same name as Christ. His name is Yahweh Shai. So that's the point that I want to share here, family. So that's what I thought it was pretty interesting, is how they took the name Sister Janae, put it where you see H-O, put H-A, and that'll give you, and after the W, put an A, and that's how you properly pronounce it. So Barabbas had the exact name as the Messiah, right? That he had the exact name as the Messiah. All right. So that's the point that I want to stress. So, family, I know we went much longer. This is like a 3-hour video. Didn't anticipate on it being this long. And what I will do, I will go back over it, the video, and I'm just going to take out the discussion in between, just so that way you guys can get straight to the information. All right. You know, and I'll say this to you, family. If you guys decide to watch the movie or not, I just want to give you more of a better understanding of how you should approach the movie. Remember, as my buddy Moxie said, you know, it's Hollywood. It's a Hollywood movie. So don't expect it to be going by the books. But what I will say, you know, is the movie is not a bad movie. And it gave a great angle on how to approach. You know, it was like, you know, when you, it's like watching, like if you watch like the Jim Jones movies or the David Koresh movies, and it's about a false prophet, right? You see those are actual documentaries, and you saw movies off of that. When I look at the life of the book of Clarence, to me, it's a similar spin, but it's comedy, but it's showing you an angle of a false prophet, a hustler. All right. I was thinking of another example and it just left me just that quick. You know, but in a nutshell, family, for me, I'm not going to call it a blasphemous movie, because only, you know, if you see it, then you'll understand why. So with that being said, family, I'm not going to hold you guys up much longer, but I appreciate the love and support. And let me go through the chat here real quick. It looks like I see a couple extra chats here. Let's see here. Friday Jones, I've been learning so much from your channel, and thank you, Friday Jones, for the love and support. Thank you for just coming back to the channel and just allowing this channel to help you grow and really be able to better discern, properly discern rather, when you're reading the scripture, and how to weed through a lot of the stuff that we have to kind of weave through when it comes to a lot of the teachings that are out here. So really appreciate you. Let's see here. That movie proved that there's nothing new under the sun. That's it. That's it. That's all. Clarence was the first prophet preacher who actually changed his life. See, that's the point that, as Chocolate Booney pointed out, and thank you for the love and support, family. This is the part with the sister that came on here, this is the part that she didn't want to acknowledge. As she said here, that movie proved that there's nothing new under the sun. What it means is that he was all about, as he said, that's all. Clarence was the first prophet preacher, who actually changed his life. And what she's meaning is he was a hustler, and he went in it from one angle, and then in the end, he changed his life. He still had to deal with the consequences, but I'm gonna leave it at that. I don't want to spoil the movie. Maybe in a month or two, I'll revisit this. So family, I really appreciate the love and support. And thank you again for Chocolate Booney. And family, I'm going to leave this up here for a second as I give my final thoughts here. Her words here should give you an angle of how to approach it. All right. This right here, just what she typed here, should give you a proper way of approaching the text. Approaching the movie. Right? I didn't go into it to be preached to, right? Don't go there trying to be preached to. Just go there and just watch the movie and just make notes. And again, use it as a talking point, a discussion tool. Man, I know some of the young people want to watch it. Now you could go talk to that young person, but the key is it's going to force you to have to be what? On top of what you say and what you do. You're going to have to know what Messiah is, what it truly means. That word wasn't just for the Son of the Most High. It was a common word, simply means anointed. You're going to have to explain to them that, hey, Clarence does not represent the Messiah. And explain to them that he was a hustler trying to trick his way. So with that being said, family, I'm not going to sound like I'm going to continue to beat a dead horse, so to speak. When it's all said and done, you have to stand before the Most High and give an account. All right. You have to stand before the Most High and give an account. With that being said, I'm not going to give it a garbage can. I'm not going to give it a 3-piece as I anticipated on doing. I think the movie was far better than it exceeded every expectation of what I thought about what the movie would be. All right. Again, it's the life of a hustler who wanted to trick his way, become a hustler to hustler people by using scripture. And we see this happening right now. Right. You even have people that went from the pulpit to YouTube channels and all about monetization, making money. That YouTube monetization is doing a lot to people. Social media making money is doing a lot to people. They're selling their souls out to be monetized. And once they become monetized, they refuse to give this truth. They give whatever things that's going to scratch your itching ear so they could get all kinds of numbers so that way they could get money off of it. Me, family, I already know. I know how YouTube does. They do all kinds of stuff. So don't get it twisted. Just because you see that I've gotten some good traffic on some of my videos. Hey, trust me, YouTube is doing their thing again. They throttling my views and subscribers and all that stuff. But again, I'm still going to speak the truth. So with that being said, family, in the words of the Most High that he gave to Moses, Exodus chapter 14, verse 13 to 14. Fear ye not, stand still, see the salvation of Yahweh. These Egyptians that you see here today, you will never have to deal with them again. The Most High will fight for you, but you have to do what? Hold your peace. Can't go back, can't stay here. Keep moving forward. Shalom.
Listen, Genesis chapter 11, verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this back, Genesis 14, verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being a descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was Abraham, born in the city of a black man, called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me do some explaining. Abraham, Isaac was the... Jacob had 12 sons, for real, and these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel.